lying on the sand for 48 hours, but he did not dare to move a single inch, because his back is a 10,000 feet of cliff. If he is not careful, he will be broken into pieces. He gripped the ground with all his might, but the fine yellow sand and cannot bear the weight of the man. The whole man slid towards the cliff. In a desperate situation, he had to use his face as a brake. This is barely stopping. Just then, his girlfriend called. The man clutched the ground with his right hand, with his face pressed against the sand slope. His left hand unzipped and reached into his backpack. He was about to succeed, but the next second, he finally stopped at the edge of the cliff. Now he didn't dare to move at all, because behind him were sharp rocks. Another 2 hours passed. By now the man was so scared that his arms and legs were weak. It had broken him. The man looked down at the waves. His mouth began to mumble. So he was calculating the cycle of the waves lapping at the shore. If he could use the waves to fall into the water, there is still a chance of escape. If he failed to land on the rocks, he will be broken into pieces. With the completion of the second reading, the man hurriedly released his hand. He successfully fell into the water, but because of the impact was too strong, the weight still hit the rock. He put up with the pain, struggled to the surface of the water, but the real test was just beginning. He struggled to climb up a scorched rock. When he recovered, he began to check his body. Luckily, there was only a cut on his hand. There is no serious injury, but when he stood up and just took a step, fell down with a click. His head hit the rock directly. When he woke up again, he found that his spine was misaligned. His legs had lost consciousness. He fought through the pain. He quickly retrieved his phone from his bag, but the phone had been severely waterlogged. The screen could not be opened. Other than that, there was only a book, which was useless. He could only shout for help, but there was nothing but the sound of the waves. In front of him was a steep vertical cliff. Behind him was an endless ocean. There was nothing to do. He had to take off his clothes. First, simply treat the wound. He lay down on the rock, looking at the planes flying overhead. At that moment, his heart was desperate. To save his strength, the man lay on the rock and slowly fell asleep. When he woke up again, he calmed down. It is not a good idea to keep going on like this. He began to look around. It was harder to climb the cliff than to climb the sky. Then he found an island in the distance. This is the only hope for survival. So he put on his bag and jumped into the water. Will he be rescued or not? Translated with www.deeple.com. Meter cliff. At this point, his right hand was injured and his spine was dislocated. There is no one around. He couldn't just sit there and wait for his life. So he put his bag on his back and jumped into the water, but he lost the feeling of his legs. Paddling alone with his arms was very difficult. The sea water soaked the wound. The intense pain made his whole body ache, covered his abdomen and sank into the water. Finally, due to physical exhaustion, he gave up the struggle, slowly sank down. The moment his legs touched the bottom of the sea, he remembered his girlfriend. He was not willing to leave like that, so the man regained his strength. He swam hard back to the beach. He leaned against the rock and didn't move a muscle. Since he fell off the cliff, 24 hours had passed. Apart from writing an emergency call for help, he did not know what else he could do. Just then, he saw a surfboard floating in the sea. The man seemed to see hope. He used his hands to support his body, climbed over desperately, but just as he was about to get it, there was a wave in front of him. The man's head hit the rock again. He also passed out again. As the wave swept him into the sea, he woke up in time, but he was too far from the shore, and the waves were getting bigger and bigger. In the nick of time, he threw out his backpack and hung it on the scorched rock. Hard to resist the waves, and at that moment, a helicopter flew in the air. Although he shouted for help, but the plane did not find him. He could only watch the plane go away. After a long time, the waves finally subsided. His hand was still hanging on the scorched rock. A seagull found an opportunity. He took a bite of the wound. The pain woke him up instantly. 36 hours had passed since he fell off the cliff. He hadn't taken a drop of water in that time. Without timely hydration, may lead to shock. He saw a can on the side. He hurriedly reached out to get it, but it was filled with seawater. The man fell on the beach in despair. When he woke up again, it was already late at night. By now his legs were already frozen purple. Even if he was rescued, his legs would have to be amputated. Hungry and thirsty, he, dragging his unconscious legs, he found a roll of tinfoil and a wooden stick. Then he dug out a pit of earth. Laying the tinfoil flat in the pit, he began to collect his own urine, but due to his injuries, the urine that came out was all bloody. It was impossible to eat. At that moment, the sky began to thunder and lightning. He hurriedly laid out the tinfoil, ready to catch some rain to drink a painful, but the rain was gone after a few drops. Drink a few drops of water from the cup, and then dried up the water droplets on the tinfoil. Fell down and fell asleep. He was awakened by the ringing of his cell phone. He rushed to pull the phone out of the sand. Translated with www.deeple.com. Translator, free, digging like a dog. Surprisingly, he took out a cell phone, facing the parents in the phone. The man was so excited. He rushed to ask them for help, but the strange thing is, the parents in the phone kept talking, totally ignored him. The man took a closer look. It turns out that only the video in the phone. Looking at the family in the video, the man rekindled his hope, no matter what it takes to survive. Just at that moment, he found a surfboard on the beach. He managed to climb over it, but he lost his strength. He just lay there on the beach, waiting for a miracle. The seagulls wake the man up. They kept waving their wings, as if they were laughing at him, but it also fuels his will to fight. Instead of waiting here to die, it was better to take the initiative. He tugged his board and climbed into the sea. He wanted to grab the chance of life, fearing he wouldn't be able to hold on. He put his hand all over the rope of the board. The waves swamped him again and again, but each time he stubbornly surfaced. He felt a sense of focus like never before. He kept moving through the waves, until he exhausted all his strength. He didn't see a boat coming. He had no desire to fight on. As the surfboard left, the man slowly sank towards the bottom of the sea. Just at that moment, a huge black shadow appeared on the surface of the sea. It turned out to be a rescue boat. Then a man in a diving suit jumped down. He dragged the man towards the surface. Trapped for 48 hours, the man finally regained his life. Soon after, the man turned to safety. At this point, he had a new appreciation for life. He missed his parents so much. All these years because of his own arrogance. Hadn't seen his family for years. Just at that moment, his girlfriend pushed open the door of the hospital room. After a life and death experience, both of them understood the importance of each other. Soon after, the man and his girlfriend came to the beach again. The bruises on his hands were still visible. A constant reminder to the man, no matter what danger he encounters, as long as he does not give up, a miracle will happen. This is a film based on a true story. At the end of the film, a man is standing on the edge of a cliff. There is another man standing next to him, and he is the prototype of the story. He tells us by his actions, as long as we have an unyielding will, the biggest waves can't submerge us. This is the end of the film. Translated with www.deeple.com. Translator, free version.